Welcome. Tonight, we're going to take a slow, gentle journey, not just through time, but through reflection. Because tonight's story is about the mirror, a simple object, common, everyday, yet quietly powerful. The mirror doesn't just show us our faces, it shows us how we've changed, what we've valued, and how we've seen ourselves. So now, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let's begin. Part 1. The dark glass of origins before mirrors were smooth and silver. They were stone. The very first mirrors were made thousands of years ago, around 6,000 years ago, in Anatolia, now modern-day Turkey. They weren't made of glass, they were made of polished obsidian, volcanic glass, dark and smooth. Imagine holding a black disc in your hands, cool to the touch, heavy, and in it, if the light hit just right, you could see a faint image of yourself. These obsidian mirrors weren't everyday items, they were rare, precious, used for rituals, ceremonies, and perhaps magic. To the people of the time, the reflection wasn't just an image, it was something deeper, a connection to the soul, a gateway to the unknown. Part 2. Bronze Reflections and the Gods of Egypt. As civilizations advanced, so did mirrors. In ancient Egypt, mirrors were made of polished bronze or copper, flattened and rounded, often with beautifully carved handles. They were prized by royalty, priests, and the wealthy. The mirror wasn't just a grooming tool, it was a sacred object, a symbol of beauty and the divine. In Egyptian mythology, the goddess Hathor, goddess of love, music, and joy, was often associated with mirrors. To look into a mirror was to connect with the divine feminine, to glimpse the eternal. These bronze mirrors could reflect more clearly than obsidian, but they still required polishing, care, reverence. They did not show perfect clarity, but perhaps that made the reflection more human. Part 3. Greek philosophy and Roman elegance. The ancient Greeks also embraced mirrors, calling them speculums. Philosophers saw them not just as objects, but metaphors. Plato believed the world we see is like a reflection, a mere shadow of deeper truth. To him, the mirror wasn't just a physical item, it was symbolic of perception and illusion. Meanwhile, in Rome, mirrors became more widespread. Made of polished metals, silver, tin, and bronze, they began to appear in wealthier households, bathhouses, and villas. Romans were fascinated by reflection, not just of the face, but of status, beauty, and ideals. To gaze into a mirror was to contemplate identity. Who am I? Who do I wish to be? A question that still lingers every time we look into one. Part 4. The medieval mirror and the mystery of self. In the Middle Ages, mirrors almost disappeared from everyday life. They were expensive, fragile, rare. And in a world shaped by religious doctrine, mirrors sometimes carried suspicion. In medieval folklore, mirrors could trap souls, reflect demons, or be used by sorcerers to see the future. Still, in the courts and castles of Europe, mirrors were treasured. They were made by coating glass with a thin layer of metal, often lead or silver. These early glass mirrors were dim and cloudy, the reflection soft, ghost-like, not perfect, but hauntingly beautiful. To peer into such a mirror was like peering into memory itself. Part 5. The Renaissance and the rise of clarity. Then came Venice. In the 15th and 16th centuries, Venetian glassmakers on the island of Murano revolutionized the mirror. They discovered a method of coating crystal clear glass with mercury and tin, producing reflections that were sharp, bright, and vivid. Venetian mirrors became a luxury of the elite. Kings and queens hung them in palaces, not just to admire themselves, but to multiply light, to expand space, to create illusion. A mirror was no longer just a tool, it was art, a symbol of refinement, a possession of power. But these mirrors were still rare, so expensive that only the wealthiest could afford them. To stand before one was to see not only your reflection, but your status in society. Part 6: The Enlightenment and the Mirror as Science. As the Enlightenment spread across Europe, so too did innovation. By the 17th and 18th centuries, mirror making advanced further. Techniques improved, prices dropped, mirrors appeared in middle-class homes, and as they spread, so did self-awareness. This was the age of portraits, poetry, and personal reflection, both literal and philosophical. Writers and thinkers pondered identity. Artists painted themselves. People began to see the self as something to understand, to shape, to present. The mirror was now part of the human experience, a daily encounter with the image of who we are and who we wish to be. Part 7: The Industrial Age and the Mirror in Every Home. In the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution changed everything. Mass production made mirrors cheap, durable, and available to all. Suddenly, mirrors weren't just in palaces and parlors. They were in bedrooms, bathrooms, hallways. The mirror became part of the morning ritual, a quiet companion in the start of each day. But as mirrors spread, so did vanity, insecurity, comparison. The mirror could inspire pride, but also self-doubt. It was no longer just a tool of reflection. It was a judge, a critic, a standard. How we saw ourselves began to change. Part 8: The Mirror in the Modern World Today. Mirrors are everywhere. We carry them in pockets. They line gym walls, elevators, and makeup kits. And beyond physical mirrors, we have selfies, videos, and screens. We see ourselves more than any generation before us. But do we know ourselves more or less? We live in a time of constant reflection, but often it's filtered, curated, shaped. The mirror has become more than glass and silver. It's now a portal to identity, performance, perception. Still, amidst all that noise, there's something peaceful about an old, quiet mirror, something timeless, a still pool, a silent witness, a keeper of the self. Part 9: Superstition, Symbolism, and Sleepy Thoughts. Throughout history, mirrors have held mystical meanings. 7 years of bad luck if you break one. Covering mirrors after someone dies to prevent the soul from being trapped. Scrying, gazing into a mirror to see visions. Even in modern storytelling, mirrors remain powerful. They show truth. They hold secrets. They ask questions. And maybe they simply reflect back what we bring to them. When we look into a mirror, we don't just see a face, we see a life, memories, dreams, doubts, hopes. The mirror doesn't lie, but it doesn't explain either. It simply shows. Part 10: Good Night Reflections. So tonight, when you walk past your mirror, take a moment, not to critique, not to analyze, just to look gently. You are the result of centuries of reflection, of invention, of culture. The mirror is old, so old, and so are the questions it carries. But tonight, let them rest. Close your eyes, let your mind soften, and drift into sleep. Because even the quietest things, even the smoothest, silverest surfaces have stories to tell, and you're part of that story. Good night. Thank you for joining me for this reflection on the mirror. Sleep well, and remember, even the smallest things carry the weight of centuries.